Cool. So you can still share the screen, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
All right.
I can share. Okay.
Nice. So some good news actually before we start. The Gauranga books are flying their way through the skies right now, on the way to the UK, and they'll be here very soon. And then from here, they'll arrive at my address, and then from here, I'll dispatch them to you, or I can arrange to meet you, and you can collect them in that way. So in total, we've distributed 15 books. So I'm expecting at least 15 participants going forward. But for now, there's us. So let's make a start. So schooling pastime. So this is now section 2. The first part was the predictions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance and then his birth. Now this is a very fun part of the pastimes because they're all playful and mischievous pastimes of Nimai Pandit. So I'll begin reading, and then Amu Mataji, do you also have a copy of the Gauranga book?
Yes, Prabhu, I do have.
Yeah. Okay, so perhaps me, yourself, and Nimesh can read. Shambhalab, do you have a copy of the book as well? I don't know if you do.
I mean, they can all
yes, I
read
do.
from the
But
screen.
then,
anyway.
You also have a copy, yeah? Okay. Are you available to read as well?
it depends. Because in the middle, I might have to go for dinner. But
I see. Do you want to start then by just reading a little bit?
yeah,
Do you have your
sure.
copy to hand?
It's Nimesh is sharing the screen.
I'll read it from there. Sure. Okay.
Schooling pastimes. An astrologer told Lord Chaitanya's father, Jagannath Mishra, that his elder son would take sannyas. He was afraid that maybe Lord Chaitanya would take sannyas too. So he thought that one way of stopping this would be that he should be educated. Let him remain uneducated and just stay in the house.
Thank you. So the schooling pastime begins with Jagannath Mishra's desire not to educate Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nimai. It doesn't actually mention anywhere about the chart of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's not mentioned. Only his brother. Does anyone remember his brother's name from last week?
Vishwarupa Prabhu.
That's right, Mataji, yes. So Jagannath Mishra and Shachi Mata, they had another son whose name was Vishwarup. Yeah. And he was an incarnation of whom? Does anyone remember?
Balaram or Nityananda? Balaram.
Yeah, it's mentioned specifically that he's an incarnation of Sankarshan. Sankarshan is also the name of Lord Balaram, but specifically Sankarshan relates to he who unites. So he in the Krishna Leela, because the two families, the family of Devaki and Vasudev and the family of Yashoda and Nanda were united by Balaram, he was named Sankarshan. And so in the same here, Vishwarup, his name, he was actually an incarnation of that Sankarshan. So, okay, let's continue reading.
Lord Chaitanya wanted to go to school and be educated, but because his parents wouldn't let him, he became very naughty. He was maybe only 5 years old, but he really wanted to go to school. So he would run around and do many naughty things.
Yeah. So just as an aside point, here is not mentioned. This is Jagannath Mishra's desire. This is his father's desire that he doesn't go to school. But in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, it's described that Sachi Mata, she disagreed with Chaitanya with Nimai's not going to school. She wanted him to go to school, and she was really hurt by the fact that he wasn't going to be learning, going to be educated. And she would disagree with Jagannath Mishra, and they would have debate about it in their house. And she would say, well, what about his education? How can he be called a Brahmana if he's not educated? How will he get a sacred thread? How will he get married? How will he have a Brahmani wife, if he himself is not educated? How will he be able to maintain his dharma, his vows? Huh? And so this was actually a really big deal. It wasn't just that, like, these days, if you don't do well at school, it's okay, you'll get on, you'll get by. But here was like a really big deal because they were such a cultured family. So it was like a unheard of that the son of a Brahmin wasn't educated, especially in a place like Navadvip, which is considered like the seat of learning and educate. It's like the hub of education. So there's a hint here why, despite all this, still Jagannath Mishra didn't want his son to go to school. So what was the basis of Jagannath Mishra's not wanting his son to go to school? What do you think was really the driving factor for that?
Because he doesn't want Mahaprabhu to take sannyas. He's already Vishwarupa took sannyas.
Yeah, that's right. And why did he not want him to take sannyas? Why would one not want their son to take sannyas? It should also be noted that Vishwarup took sannyas at a very young age, in his teenage years. Yeah, so he just finished his schooling and immediately he took sannyas. So this is kind of the age difference. He was maybe 10 or 15 years older. I don't know the reference, but he would be that much older, approximately, than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So what was the reason? So he didn't want him to take sannyas, but why? What was the reason?
Wanted the association of his son, like most parents, like they want to always be around their children. They don't want a situation where they don't see their children again.
That's it, yeah. So that's what we can understand from this. He was really extremely attached to his son. He just wanted to keep his son at home by all means necessary. And really by all means necessary. He was really determined to keep Nimai at home. Yeah. So, this would have been like, really extreme situation that he didn't, he was risking his education. He was risking his being a Brahmin and working and serving as a Brahmin in the community. Risk his marriage. But he was so attached to his child that he didn't care about any of that. He replied to Sachi Mata that Krishna is the supreme maintainer. What are you worried about? He's saying, and then he gave his own example. He said, even I myself, I'm so educated, so learned, and still I was so poor my whole life. Yet Krishna is maintaining me. So what difference does it make whether he's educated or not? One can be educated and still be poor, or one can be uneducated and still be very wealthy. So he was giving these points to Sachimata. And meanwhile, as we've just read, Nimai was becoming very naughty. So let's get into that. Okay. So Shambhala, would you like to read one more?
Yeah. He'd go to a neighbor's house and put water in the ear of their baby, and the baby would start crying. He'd go to the Ganges and we'd bathe in the Ganges. Sometimes he'd take all the men's clothes and mix them with the ladies' clothes. When they came out, it was very embarrassing.
Because this is some of the mischief that Nimai would get up to in his like young age. So he was only 5 or 6 years old. Let's mention he's around 5 years old here. And this is, to go to someone's house and, it's normally when you see a baby and everyone plays with the baby, it's so gentle and sweet. But here he's like, he's putting his finger in his mouth and making his finger wet, and then he's putting it in the baby's ear, which is really irritating the baby, right? So this is something that happens in in like this would normally happen in like schools and things, you know, and he's doing this to little babies. This is how children are naughty at school. They play these kind of pranks, right? So obviously he wasn't at school, so then he would have to go around with his mother with whatever his mother's activities were, whether it be, you know, visiting other mothers and so on, and then he'd play pranks everywhere he went. And then it's also meant there's also one more prank mentioned. What was that? So remember, this is a discussion, everyone, so it would be nice if you can have your video on for the at least during while you're speaking, if not all the time. Enable us to have a nice discussion, and please participate, please follow the reading. So what else did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu do, which we just read?
He used to take the ladies' clothes and mix them with the men's clothes.
Yeah. So we know that in the traditional Indian villages and towns, they would have separate bathing areas for ladies and men, bathing ghats they were called. So you'd have these steps going down into the river, and around the steps, you know, is where you can place all your clothes and belongings. And the ladies' ghat and the men's ghat are usually always separate. So you know, that way they could maintain their privacy respectively. And so then Nimai, he would go from one ghat, he would collect the clothes, go to the other ghat and drop them, and then pick up the clothes from one other place and bring them to the first place. And that way, when the men or the ladies would come out of the water, they wouldn't find their clothes there. So they had no choice but to just pick up some random pair of clothes from the other gender, and, you know, just have to embarrassingly somehow either cover themselves and go home. So you can imagine what like kind of scene this would cause in the village or in the town, you know, like there's a brahmana or someone who, so generally it would be the brahmanas who would go, you know, and bathe in the Ganges early morning, you know, and they'd find that, you know, they don't have their clothes to wear, or the brahmanis, they would not have their clothes to wear. It's a very embarrassing situation. Okay. Shamvalabha, are you still here? You can read one more.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sometimes some Brahmana would be chanting his Gayatri Mantra, and Lord Chaitanya would come out of the water, take water from the Ganges, and spit on him. The Brahmana would say, "What are you doing?" They would be very offended, and sometimes he would pull people's legs from under them while they were trying to say their mantras in the Ganges. All of these little things. Of course, since he was Krishna, it was actually a blessing, but they were just seeing the external, a very naughty boy.
Yeah. So here are a couple more pranks. So yes, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, whatever a great man does, the common man will follow. So that doesn't necessarily mean that when God is naughty, then we can also copy him. We can also play these same pranks. But indeed, that children are naughty, that naughtiness has an origin. Krishna is the origin of all naughtiness. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also, his very original nature, his transcendental original nature is also in naughtiness. And of course we know in so many pastimes Krishna is also naughty. Krishna is famous for his naughtiness, right? What are some of the names that Krishna has as a result of being naughty?
Nutcut, Nandalal.
Really? Oh, that's one I haven't heard.
I think that's
Nutcut
probably a
Nandalal,
Gujarati
yeah.
one.
Okay.
Probably a Gujarati one.
Right. That's nice. Anyone else? Think of any names?
Makanchor.
Makanchor. Yeah. Very well known. Krishna is known as Makanchor. Yeah. And related to Makanchor, there's another name I could think of as well. So after Krishna stealing butter, then Mother Yashoda, she she disagrees that Krishna is so naughty. But then when Krishna is naughty in her own home, then she also chastises him, and then Krishna gets another name. Does anyone know what that name is? Should be a very easy one because we celebrate Krishna in this form for 1 month.
Damodar.
Damodar, yeah, that's right. So because of Krishna's naughtiness, he gets tied up, and therefore his name is Damodar. Yeah. Okay, let's continue reading on. If Shambhal's still with us.
Another time, a Brahmana was going down to the Ganges with a little banana leaf plate with some incense, tulsi leaves, flowers, a little lamp, and some different things for puja. He wanted to recognize his plate from everybody else because more or less everybody's plate looked the same. So he took a little bowl of Ganges mud, rolled it up, and put it on his plate. Then Lord Chaitanya would put balls on everybody's plate and confuse them. He would do anything he could to put pressure on his parents and send him to school.
Okay, so what's Nimai doing in this scene now?
He's putting balls of Ganges mud on everybody's plates so that the Brahmana doesn't know which plate is his.
Yeah, that's right. So there's one Brahmin who puts that ball on his plate just so he knows which one is his offering. But then when he comes back and they've all got mud on them, he's like, which one's my plate? I just did this especially so I could identify my plate, right? So it seems like he has some special mercy on this one Brahmin. Okay. So of course all these pastimes, although they're very mischievous, all of the residents, they took great pleasure in Nimai's play. They actually felt like within their heart they actually felt very blissful. Externally they were very frustrated, and upset and annoyed, disappointed, and also very careful, like, what's he going to do next? But within their hearts they were really relishing that. So, yes, so there was another pastime that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would have with a devotee named Kolavecha Sridhar. Does anyone know who Kolavecha Sridhar is? Okay, Kolavecha means someone who sells bananas. Kola is a banana, and Vecha means salesman, I guess. So Kolavecha Sridhar, he was extremely poor, because he would sell bananas, and specifically the banana, the leaves, the banana leaves he would sell specifically. Now anyone who's been to this part of Bengal will know that there are banana leaves falling here, there, and everywhere, and there's really not much need to sell, banana leaves. You could say it's like selling water to a whale. A whale is surrounded by water. There's no need for more water. But in any case, this was his occupation. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he would play games with him also. He would play games with Kolavecha Sridhar. He would go and bargain for these banana leaves and say, "You're overcharging me. You're ripping me off. How can you charge, 10 paisa for just these few leaves?" And Kolavecha would argue back. He would say, no, this is the most reasonable price. You can check the whole of the market. You won't find leaves so cheap. So he would personally go and collect all those leaves himself, and he would sell them in the market. And whatever money he made from those leaves, then he would give 50% for Ganga Puja. He would offer the half of his salary to worshipping Ganga Mata. And still, whatever was left even after that, that's what he maintained himself with. And so he had a very humble home. He lived in a small thatched hut which had like holes in the roof, and water would come in. and he was extremely austere. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, actually knowing that he had such a pure heart, would go and play these games with him, and every day he would argue and fight with him. And so externally this used to disturb Kolavecha Sridhar so much, but in his heart he would always wish for the next opportunity to argue and fight, and just see the sweet smile of Nimai, as he was playing this mischief with him. So like that, there were so many different pastimes. Do you want to hear some more? I can't see anyone else's face, so Linisha's on the screen, so I'll tell a couple of more short stories. So there were a couple more mentioned in Chaitanya Bhagavat. So one of the pastimes is that Nimai and some of his younger friends who were not of school age, they would dress up with like cloths and sheets over their head, and different in a way they would dress themselves in a way that they would look like bulls, like little bulls. And when it was getting dark in the evening time, they would run into people's gardens and then run around and play with, like, they had horns, and run and bash into everything and crash everything and knock everything over, as boys do. They like to damage stuff. So they would run around and knock everything over, and the people in the home, they would look out with their candle and be like, there's a bull in my garden, it's wrecking my garden. And so in that way, then Nimai would have fun, and he would run out of the garden and start laughing and rolling on the ground, with his friends. And then other times he would go to the garden and of his neighbors, and he would tie their back door, because of course they didn't need to lock their doors like the way we do now. They would just have a door which was left open, unlocked. But he would go and tie a string or rope to that door. And the reason that he would do that is because they used to use the bathroom outside the house. In those times they wouldn't have a bathroom, they wouldn't have a toilet in the house. They would go to the back of the garden and do their business. So when it was time to go, when it was call of nature, they would go out of the back door of their garden, but the door had a string attached to it, and they couldn't get out the door to go to use the loo. So they were like, trying to push the door open, and it was tied, and Nimai and the boys would be in the back laughing because these brahmanas, they wouldn't be able to go out. So they would be getting all crazy in the house, like, can't get out of my house. Have to find something to cut the door open. So these are some of the games that I mentioned in Chaitanya Bhagavat, some of the mischievous games and pranks. Okay, so Nimesh Prabhu, would you like to read a little bit, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
In those days, they used to cook in terracotta pots. You may think this is a very ancient practice or a kind of rustic thing, but actually it is a much more advanced system. They didn't have to wash pots. The pots are disposable and biologically degradable. There was no plastic or aluminium, but nice clay, which is very good for cooking. It gives an even heat. After the cooking, there was a little place in the backyard where they would throw their clay pots. Then later they would cover it with dirt, and the pots would recycle into the earth. One time, Lord Chaitanya was standing on those clay pots, and Mother Shachi said, "What you are doing? That is a garbage pit, a dirty place." She said it was ashuchi. Shuchi means pure, and ashuchi means an impure place.
Okay, if you could carry on to the next one.
Then the Lord replied to his mother, "What do I know about shuchi or ashuchi? I am not able to go to school, remember? I am not able to learn all these things. I am just an ignorant child because you are not letting me go to school. So what do I know? For all I know, this is as good as any other place."
So of course, he knew what was good behavior and what was naughty behavior, and he was inciting his parents to go to school, right? To take him to school. So he was playing on that level, but of course on another level, he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he knew exactly what he was doing. He knew everything. Yeah. So an interesting lesson is given here about about the value of the Vedic ecological system, you know. We were also discussing this in Krishna book a little bit earlier in the week, right? About how the previous way of life was very environmentally friendly, huh? So it's becoming a big deal these days to become environmentally friendly. The government is investing, you know, G20 countries are investing so much money in reducing carbon footprint and so on, right? So it's interesting that it's mentioned here that this system of you know, using clay pots is much more advanced, isn't it? What did you all think of that? Any thoughts or any reflections on that? How is that a better system?
It says that it's biologically degradable.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not gonna like end up like in big landfill piles, and yeah, so it's better for the environment.
Yeah, that's right. So you'd never see anything like that, you know. You wouldn't have a garbage collector, you know, dustbin man, you know. You wouldn't need any of that kind of thing. You just chuck all this stuff in your garden, in the corner, at the back somewhere, and you just get a natural like compost area, you know. So that's basically what they did, and you could basically have a new set of you have a new set of what do you call it, like tableware. You have a new set of plates and spoons and cups and bowls. Well, you'd have a new set of everything every time you had a meal, right? You wouldn't have to go through like the washing of dishes. Imagine. Finish with it, just chuck it in the back of the garden. Done. Right? It's like a dream. Yeah. And even now, people may say, you know, we're obviously using steel or we're using ceramic, you know, but the amount of packaging that comes with it, you know, bubble wrap and all the cardboard box and, you know, everything else. Of course, they're trying to make more of it recyclable now, but so unnecessary, like, because all these things, they were just made locally before. Everything was locally made and sustainable. Yeah, every area had its own ecosystem. So no need for shipping stuff from here to there. You know, having fine China, as they say, you know, from China. Right. So all of the systems that we use today are highly unsustainable, isn't it? So just a nice lesson here as well. So this was actually a more advanced system. Yes, Prabhu, so if you could continue.
He was always trying to make his parents send him to school. So finally, Mother Shachi said, "How can we stop him going to school? He really wants to go. Whatever his karma is, we can't really stop it as parents." So finally, they let him go to school.
Right, so along with Nimai's naughty behavior and Mother Shachi's pleading, Jagannath Mishra has agreed to let Nimai go to school. Yeah. So you can continue.
On the first day Lord Chaitanya went to school, he learnt all the Sanskrit consonants and vowels. Just like in English we have the alphabet, so in Sanskrit and in Bengali there is also the alphabet. It is the same alphabet in Bengali and Sanskrit, only the pronunciation of a few syllables is a little different. Otherwise it is pretty much the same. The characters are a little more round, otherwise the alphabets are same.
Okay. I'm not one to be able to comment on this much because I know neither Sanskrit nor Bengali. So if anyone else would like to share, most welcome to. Otherwise, please continue, Nimesh Prabhu.
Sanskrit is a phonetic alphabet. Every letter is a particular sound. If we can spell it, then we can speak it. Not like English. The way English letters are pronounced can be completely different in different words. But in Bengali and Sanskrit, If you know the spelling, you can pronounce the word. It is always the same pronunciation. There are no irregularities as far as the alphabet is concerned.
Hare
Prabhu,
Krishna.
sorry.
Thanks. So does that make sense to everyone? Yeah, what was being explained? Can you think of some examples just to bring that to life a little bit?
So like scissors, if we were to pronounce it the way it's spelled, we'd call it skizzers or something like that. Skissers.
Right. Yeah, many of the words that are written are like practically unpronounceable. Huh?
Yeah, they said Sanskrit is the best language even for programming, apparently. And
Right.
even like Germans, I think German people, because their language is much similar to Sanskrit more than English. And I think it was these German people who were saying Sanskrit is the best language for programming even.
Yeah, for computer programming, yeah?
Hmm.
Right. And isn't it also said that NASA, they want to introduce Sanskrit into their, I've heard that as well. I don't know if it's true. Some years ago, I was told that NASA, they want to incorporate that into their programming because it's very logical kind of structure. Of course, someone like NASA, they're making programs that essentially sending rockets to space. So, the amount of code and so on they have to write is enormous. So if they have a more efficient language, then they have less code. They have a smaller code base, and therefore they can do more. When they stack all that code together, and therefore they want to use the most efficient way of doing it. So they were suggesting that Sanskrit was that efficient alphabet. I also had one thought as well, because now Janava is she's 3 years old, and they're starting to teach her the alphabet at her nursery. So they also don't. I don't remember when I was a kid, but the schools now, they don't teach the alphabet the way that it is on the alphabet chart, A to Z. They actually teach phonetic alphabets to children. So they teach them to say things as they sound. So even in the modern education system, they're realizing that this Gregorian alphabet that we use isn't very effective in teaching young children. So they teach them to speak by the way things sound. So phonetic alphabet basically means saying the sound as you speak. So if I was going to say, I don't know, telephone, how do you spell telephone? I'd say to Janava, and she would say, phone, because that's how it sounds, but you wouldn't spell it like that, of course. Okay. So Sanskrit you could actually learn quite easily. So we all think Sanskrit is very difficult to learn, but if it's taught, if it's a phonetic language, actually it'd be easier to learn from a young age. Prabhu, if you'd like to continue.
When Lord Krishna was present on earth, he went to Gurukul in Ujjain at the ashram of Sandipani Muni, and he learnt everything in 64 days, all 64 arts, the Puranas, and all the Vedic knowledge.
Okay, carry on.
In the same way, when Lord Chaitanya went to school, the first day he learned all the aksharas, Sanskrit letters. The very next day he learnt all the compound letters, which usually takes much longer. He learnt so many combinations in just one day.
So this is the amazing thing that Nimai, he's really able to catch up on all his learning. He's starting school late, and then he's learning what takes weeks or months in days. He was learning in days. And same with Sri Krishna, that he started school at what age? Does anyone know? what age Krishna started school with Sandipani Muni? We can guess
Yeah,
approximately.
when he actually went to when he left Vrindavan, that's when he started school. So was it 10 and a half, 11 or 12?
Yeah, I think it was a little older than that even.
I was it?
Yeah. But yeah, maybe it was 12 or between 12 and 16 years old.
Yeah.
So he left Vrindavan and then he went to save his parents from Kamsa. He went to save Devaki and Vasudev in Mathura. They were locked in a prison in Mathura. And Devaki and Vasudev, the first thing they wanted to do was educate Krishna. So this is all the Mathura Leela, that Krishna went to the school under Sandipani Muni. And he learned in 64 days what would normally take, several years to learn or more. So it's mentioned here that Sandipani Muni was the teacher of Lord Krishna. Does anyone know who is the teacher of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?
Is it Ishvara Puri? No, probably not.
Yes, a good guess. Ishwar Puri is who is Ishwar Puri? Does anyone know?
Ishwar Puri gave initiation to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yes, that's right. So Ishwar Puri is the Diksha Guru of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? And so the actual school teacher of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, does anyone know who that is? That's Ganga Das Pandit, just so you know. So Ganga Das Pandit, he is the incarnation of Sandipani Muni. He's the incarnation of Sandipani Muni. Yeah. So I don't see Nimesh on the screen, so I'll just read the next couple of paragraphs. Are we able to switch over to the other screen? No. Haribol.
Horrible. Yeah, sorry, I had to go to answer something to my parents.
No problem.
Could you give the share screen again, Amu Mataji?
Yeah, you should be able to do it now.
Right.
Shall I
Prabhu,
read?
do you want to just do you mind reading the last couple of paragraphs?
Like that, every day he was finishing so much. So by the time he was 11, he was already a master. Of course, the Lord already knows everything, but it is significant that he learned everything just to give the example that one must study to learn. Actually, he is the source of all knowledge. Vedanta Krit Veda Vid Eva Chaham, Bhagavad Gita 15:15. He is the source and the purpose of the Vedas, the maker of the Vedas, the knower of the Vedas. He knows all these subjects.
Right. So, so how old was he? He was 11 years old when he finished all his schooling, right? So between 5 and 11, that's 6 years. So in 6 years, he learned what it would take to become a professor, practically speaking. Yeah. So a PhD. Professor means PhD, right? To become a doctorate or something. Yeah. So in just a few years, you can see how fast he was able to learn. And of course, that was very easy for him because he is the source of the Vedas. Huh? So sometimes it's explained that what was the need for Chaitanya? What was the need for God to have a teacher? What's the relationship like if he already knows everything? You know, like you're telling someone what they already know, you know. Of course, he knows how the whole universe is working and how it's all structured. Even as a child, it's not that Krishna knew everything when he was older, but even as a baby, Krishna knew everything. Same Nimai, he knew everything even as a baby. He knew what was going on in every galaxy, in every universe, in the entire creation, in the material and spiritual worlds. Yeah. But it's explained that it's like the way that water is drawn from an ocean by a cloud, and then that same cloud, it pours water back on the ocean. So that relationship is given between Krishna and his spiritual and his teacher. That his teacher is drawing water from, he's drawing knowledge from Krishna, because ultimately the knowledge comes from Krishna, but he's giving that knowledge back again to Krishna. He's rendering service in that way, like the way that the cloud rains upon the ocean. So, any thoughts or reflections from this chapter that you'd like to share? It'd be nice to hear your thoughts, your realization, something you learned, something that was interesting, something that was funny. Does anyone like to share?
This is interesting that you've got Lord Chaitanya, who's Krishna, and he's literally, so when he spits that the Ganges water on that Brahmin, yeah, it's like it says, like the greatest blessing. It's like God giving you Ganges water. It's like the biggest blessing.
Oh yeah. That's right. It's like double maha, right? Because the Ganges water comes from the feet of Vishnu, and so like out of reverence, they're bathing in the water, and now it's coming from the mouth of Vishnu as well. Huh? Yeah, that's right. Would anyone else like to share something? It'd be nice to hear you sharing. So I can tell you one more story about the Ganges. And this is when, after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had started school, and he would after school go with his friends to the Ganges and just play and refresh after a day of learning. And they would go and into the water, and they would play and they would wrestle one another, all the boys. They would wrestle in the Ganges, and that would make it very muddy, and they would pull up the mud and throw mud on one another. Yeah. And so in doing that, the river, that area would become very muddy. So it was very disturbing for all the local people, especially, like the ladies who would carry their water pots. They would come and collect water for cooking and so on in their homes. So they would come and collect that water, and they would have to come and collect it, but we would have so much mud mixed in with the water, being inconvenient for them. So this was like another play that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would have. It's not mentioned here. So anyone else would like to share reflection? Nanisha, Panchali, Shambhala.
It's just the similarities between baby Krishna and baby Lord Chaitanya. So quite a few parallels, aren't there? And them both being very mischievous during their young years, growing up years. Yeah, both making their mums angry, and then leelas around. Pastimes around that.
Yeah, that's right. There are so many parallels, isn't there? Yeah. Great. Okay, so let's move on to the next chapter. Unless she would like to add anything, we can move on. So Lord Chaitanya and the Parrot. Would you like to read this one, Lanisha?
Yeah, okay, Prabhu. One of the reasons Lord Chaitanya descended was to distribute this process of chanting, the Hare Krishna Mantra. His other purpose was that he wanted to experience what his devotees felt for him, and the only way to really his own devotee. So when he came, he didn't let anyone address him as Lord. Rather, he took the humble role as a servant of the Lord, as a devotee.
Yes, so there were different reasons why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descended. We mentioned some of those in the first week. So one is that he wanted to taste what is love of Godhead for himself. He wanted to feel the happiness in the pastimes of his devotees, and he also wanted to propagate the chanting of the holy name. So there were certain external reasons, and there were internal reasons, it said. And the Chaitanya Charitamrita details those. So there are several reasons why. Okay, so you want to continue?
In the Prema Vivarta, Jagadananda Pandit explains that one day he was with Lord Chaitanya when they were children going to school, and they were running by the side of the Alakananda Ganges. At that time, there was one river on the Mayapura side that was called Alakananda. Now it is almost dried up. When we take devotees there on parikrama, you can still see some water in some places, and you can see the bed of the river. It runs between the Jalangi River and the Ganges, Bhagirathi. This Alaknanda was a very active river, which flowed near the Harihara Kshetra, which is an important temple of Vishnu and Shiva. Half the deity is Vishnu and half the deity is Shiva, a very unique deity. It is described that Vishnu manifested his deity there to show Lord Shiva that he was not different from him.
Right, so this is just a little bit of a background to the pastime we're going to read, which comes from the Prem Vivarta. Prem Vivarta is like a diary kept by Jagadananda Pandit. Yeah, so he was one of the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his childhood, especially, and so he would keep these diaries. And there are several diaries like this. Murari Gupta also kept a diary. Then Swarup Damodar kept a diary when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in his later leelas. So this Prema Vivarta is especially sweet because it deals with the more childhood pastimes of the Lord. Then it's also mentioned here about the Alakananda. So now there's no river, but there's actually like a lake. It's a kind of a small lake which is mentioned here. Is next to the Harihara Kshetra temple in Mayapur. So if you get a chance to see the darshan of these beautiful, beautiful deities, very, very special. It's half the face is black stone and half the face is white stone. Yeah, it's a very unique kind of deity. Really, incredible. If you get a chance, you can even look for it maybe on Google or something. It's a very unique deity, and I don't think you can make such a deity. I don't think if you see this deity, you think, how can they carve such a deity from two stones joined together? It doesn't look like it's even possible. And it's mentioned, there's a hint here that this Vishnu deity manifested himself. It's described that Vishnu manifested his deity there to show Lord Shiva that he was not different from him. And we know the Sanskrit term for non-different means Advaita. Yeah. So was that a comment? I was not sure.
Sorry, Prabhuji, I think I just interrupted you. Now, so Lord Shiva is he's a Gunavatar, isn't he? So there is a difference between him and Vishnu, isn't there? So why is he saying that they're not different? Why is Vishnu saying he's non-different from Shiva?
It's a good question. Shiva Tattva is a very mystical one. It's a very difficult one to understand, and it's very much intertwined with Vishnu Tattva. So there are different tattvas in our philosophy, Vishnu Tattva means the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Shiva Tattva means the partial manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then we also know there is Jiva Tattva, which is the spirit soul. There is Shakti Tattva, which is the energies of the Lord, and so on. So in Lord Brahma, he explains it in one particular way. Does anyone know from Brahma Samhita how Lord Brahma explains the difference between Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu? He gives a particular analogy. And this makes it very clear how they're the same at the same time, they're different. So I can perhaps share that if I like to hear. Yeah. So Lord Brahma in the Brahma Samhita, he explains that just as you have milk, milk in its pure form, milk, can be transformed into curd or into yogurt, yeah, by making it, like if you mix it with lemon or you make it sour, then it becomes curd or yogurt, yeah. And then from that culture you can make more and more yogurt, isn't it? That's how yogurt is made. You can make yogurt from yogurt, yeah. So it's explained that they're both dairy, so they're both the same product, they're same dairy product, but one is in a pure form and one is in a mixed form, or one is in a transformed state. So and that's why they're called Advaita. That Vishnu and Shiva, they are Advaita. They're non-different because they're both they're both like that dairy product. They're both dairy, milk and yogurt. But there is a difference because you can make yogurt from milk, but you can't make milk from yogurt, isn't it? So there is an origin, and there is a transformation. So in that way, Vishnu is like the origin, and Lord Shiva is the transformation. So Vishnu, he transforms into Lord Shiva when he enters the material creation. And so therefore Lord Shiva is considered the Lord of the false ego.
There's subtle difference. So he's not an incarnation, he's not an expansion, but he's a transformation.
That's right, yeah. And that's why there is a Shiva Tattva. He has his own Tattva. He's not a Deva. He's not like an empowered Jiva. He's not empowered like the demigods to perform a special responsibility. Like Lord Brahma, he's Jiva Tattva. He's a spirit soul. He's been empowered so much that he can create the universe. But Lord Shiva, he's not just empowered. He's actually transformation of Vishnu. Very, very powerful personality. So that's why he's considered non-different. And so yeah, this deity is very extraordinary. Has anyone seen a darshan before of this form? So check it out. Very beautiful darshan. Harihara, his name is. Okay. Prabhu, would you like to continue? Oh, sorry, it was Lanisha was reading, right? Sorry.
All right. So one day, Lord Chaitanya and Jagadananda Pandit were coming from school when the Lord saw a parrot and said, "Oh, this parrot is none different from Sukadeva." Sukadeva spoke the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. He asked the parrot, "Please tell us the glories of Radha and Krishna." But instead, the parrot chanted, "Gaura, Gaura, Gaura, Gaura." Lord Chaitanya covered his ears. "No, no, I want you to chant the glories of Radha and Krishna. Why are you chanting this? Please chant Radha Krishna." But again, the parrot began to chant, "Gaura, Gaura, Gaura, Gaura." "What is wrong with you?" said Lord Chaitanya. "This place is not different from Vrindavana, so you should chant the glories of Radha and Krishna here."
So this is a very sweet pastime that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is having with this parrot. But it's actually very, very deep. There's a lot of depth to this pastime. There's a lot of angles of vision we can see this from. Yeah. So so what reflections do you have from reading this much of it? About this parrot and him being Shukadeva Goswami. Any thoughts on that?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Smita Mataji, Hare Krishna, welcome.
Thank you. Sorry for being late. So the parrot saying Gora Gora. So he's actually just the way I'm thinking. I don't. I could be wrong, but the parrot is actually knowing that this Gora Gora is Radha Krishna.
Right. Yeah. So the parrot knows that Radha and Krishna are in the form of Gauranga. So it's a very self-realized parrot.
Is it also again a parallel to, as you said, Sukadeva Goswami, because he came from the parrot, didn't he?
Yeah.
And the parrot, it's in Bengali, it's the suk, the bird. He used to serve. He was a devotee of Radharani, and he used to be where Radha and Krishna used to do their pastimes. He used to chant their names and glorify them, and then Radharani, with the instructions of Radharani, he learned about Radha and Krishna and all the tattva, all the knowledge from Shiva. I mean, you know, not directly, but Shiva, I think, was saying about Lord Krishna to Parvati.
Yes.
And the bird actually heard that. And then there's this lovely pastime where Parvati was fell to sleep, and the bird actually made noises just to let Shiva know that somebody is listening to what he was saying.
Yes.
And then when Lord Shiva finished talking about Lord Krishna, he saw that Parvati Mata was asleep, and he realized somebody else was listening to the knowledge that he was giving. He saw the bird, chased the bird, and then there's the whole birth history of Sukadeva Goswami. I mean, how it was actually he took the form of a tiny thing, and then he was I mean, I've forgotten. I think Vyasadeva's wife just swallowed him, and then there's the birth story. He stayed in the womb for about 16 years. But I think there's the parallel of the parrot singing Gauranga, Gauranga, and then the bird in Vrindavan glorifying Radha and Krishna's pastimes. And the reason the parrot in Kali Yuga is saying Gauranga, Gauranga is because he's a devotee of both Radha and Krishna, and Gauranga is a combination. Gauranga is Krishna in the mood of Radharani, and the bird was a huge devotee of Radharani.
Yeah, amazing. Did everyone catch that? There was so much there, huh? So much nectar behind this pastime, you know. There's so much depth that's there. So Sukadeva Goswami, he's considered actually in the spiritual world, he's considered the parrot of Srimati Radharani. And therefore we know in Srimad Bhagavatam, he never utters the name of Srimati Radharani. Huh? We will not find the name of Srimati Radharani in the Srimad Bhagavatam, because this parrot is, you know, just to think of Srimati Radharani is just so ecstatic. For Shukadeva Goswami to think of Srimati Radharani, he would just, you know, turn into that parrot again and just fly away. It's just that much love he has for Srimati Radharani. So he never mentions Srimati Radharani's name because she's so dear to him. And then you also mentioned that how this parrot went on to listening to the Srimad Bhagavatam. He heard the Srimad Bhagavatam originally from Lord Shiva. So that's actually the first recitation of the Srimad Bhagavatam by Lord Shiva himself. I heard recently in a class on Shiva Ratri, I was listening to a class, it was mentioned that that Lord Shiva, he recited that Bhagavatam in that place in Orissa. What is that place? There's a place of Lord Shiva there, isn't it, in Orissa? The name escapes me now.
Is it Bhubaneswar? Or
Yeah, that's it. Bhubaneswar, yeah. So so that's actually where that pastime happened, where he had heard the Srimad Bhagavatam. The first place is Bhubaneswar. Yeah. Anyone else would like to share anything they learned from this paragraph? I also spotted one more thing in that, two more things, and that one is, of course, it says here, this place is not different from Vrindavan. Lord Chaitanya is saying, this place is not different from Vrindavan, so you should chant the glories of Radha and Krishna here. So this is also significant because Vrindavan and Mayapur, they're non-different. One who can understand that is considered to be a resident of the spiritual world. If someone can understand that Vrindavan and Mayapur, they're not different, they're a resident of the spiritual world. Huh? So that's actually the fact. And then another aspect is that he has met this parrot at Harihar-kshetra, which is in Navadvip Dham, as we're reading. It's in that place. So that's actually Lord Shiva's place in Navadvip. So again, it has that parallel to the parrot hearing from the same place where Lord Shiva lives. So you will find actually one special thing about Navadvip Dham, and they talk about this if you ever go on the Navadvip Parikrama, is that while Vrindavan and Navadvip are not different, Vrindavan and Navadvip are the same, still Navadvip is higher in the sense that all the other holy places are also in Navadvip. Yeah? Such as this Harihar-kshetra is there, which means that Bhubaneswar is also there. And you also know from the Parikrama that, you know, the holy place Pushkar is there, the place of Lord Brahma, and so many other places as well. Naimisharanya is also there. So not only is Navadvip Dham non-different from Vrindavan, but it's also all the other holy places have come there. So this is a great glory of Navadvip Dham. That just by going to this one place, you can visit every holy place. Okay.
Prabhuji, can I just quickly ask a question?
Sure.
So, so again, in talking about parallels, so if we go to the spiritual world, Golok Vrindavan, and we know that Lord Chaitanya is there as well. So when they do the pastimes, so in Golok Vrindavan, so does Lord Krishna and Radha Krishna do their pastimes at one end of Golok Vrindavan, and Lord Chaitanya does his at the other end? I mean, how do they coexist? Because all the other incarnations have their own planets. But Lord Chaitanya also lives in Golok Vrindavan. So where does he do his pastime? At one side of Golok Vrindavan, and then Radharani is on the other side? I mean,
Right.
logistically, how does that happen? Or it's a
Yeah.
spiritual world. There's nothing logistics. I mean, you know, they have
There's
their
no
own
limitations in the spiritual world. When you get there, you can tell me. Yeah, it's inconceivable, isn't it? Huh?
Yeah.
Everything is absolute there. Huh? 1 + 1 is 1. 1 - 1 is still 1. So the spiritual world is absolute. Huh? It's not like in the cowboy movies, you know. This town ain't big enough for the both of us. There's nothing like that. Although they are cowboys, they're not that kind of cowboy. Krishna and the Gopas. Sorry, side joke. So yes, there is Nitya Navadvip, and then there's Goloka Vrindavan. They are like 2 dimensions of the same place. It's described in the you can get these. I had this wonderful map which has got a map of like the entire spiritual world and material world. Maybe we can find that on the internet somewhere and send it to you. But it shows you like how all the planets are arranged in the spiritual world.
Yeah.
How Goloka Vrindavan is actually it's a planet the shape of a lotus. It opens and closes. Huh? So when Krishna wants to perform pastimes in a certain place, it's not like this Gauranga Bhumi, you know, they have to walk around the earth. You know, the place would manifest, the planet would close and open, and Krishna would be from one side and then go to the other side. So all the places would come to him. This is such an inconceivable place, the spiritual world. You know, can't wait to go there, huh? Find out for yourself.
Yeah, if you find the map, that'll be great, Prabhu.
Yeah, let's find the map to the spiritual world. Get back home as soon as possible.
Thank you.
So, so we have a few more, a couple more paragraphs to go. If Linisha would like to continue.
Then the parrot spoke. It was a spiritual parrot, so he could speak, and he said, "You see, Radha and Krishna have combined together here in the form of Gauranga. So I wanted to chant Radha and Krishna as Gaura. If you want to chant in some other way, you can do that. But I'm going to chant Gaura, Gaura, because for me, Radha and Krishna is Gaura." And he kept on chanting, "Gaura, Gaura, Gaura, Gaura."
Yes, Gaura, 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 Gaura. So this parrot was mad. It was mad for Chaitanya Nitaya. Huh? He was mad after Lord Chaitanya. And this is actually one of the favorite pastimes of Jayapataka Swami, Guru Maharaj. This is one of his favorite pastimes. I've heard him recite this pastime, I don't know, countless times. He's gone through this pastime. It's actually one of his favorites, I think. A number of times he's recited this pastime. And personally, I've been present with him in when he's reciting this pastime. And I've also been serving him at the time and doing the repetitions with him. So anyone who's been in the classes of Jayapataka Swami, they know, you know, because he's had a stroke, half of his right side of his body is paralyzed. And so he has a repetition, he has a person repeating the pastime with him. So I've had that service in the past. And when he tells this pastime, it's a good opportunity to mock the person who's repeating, or me in that situation, in that particular time. So he would make everybody, he would tell the pastime and would, you know, be saying this. So the parrot was saying, "Gaura, Gaura," and then I would have to, or whoever the repeater is, would have to say "Gaura, Gaura" in the same enthusiasm that he has when he's chanting, which is, you know, which is not like replicable, you know, because he's just actually saying with so much love himself. So I feel like this is one of his favorite pastimes. And then the whole audience would have to chant "Gaura, Gaura, Gaura, Gaura," like crazy parrots. So this is the fun of hearing this pastime live from Guru Maharaj. It's just that he just brings it to life, really. Change the atmosphere. He would change the atmosphere by the transcendental vibrations. Okay, so if you want to read the last one now.
This parrot was able to understand the actual position of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahe Anya. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a combination of Radha and Krishna. So this Lord Chaitanya is so merciful. Not only is he Radha and Krishna, not only is he coming in this material world to relish the internal pastime, but he is coming to give us the mercy, of Krishna consciousness.
Yes, so this Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahe Anya. This is a phrase that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to recall. And so it's an important one. It's an important meditation. To know that Radha and Krishna, they're non-different from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is the essence of our philosophy. Chintya Veda, Veda Tattva. Is inconceivably one and different from Radha and Krishna. So it comes to a nice conclusion. This parrot has a nice understanding of the Chintya Veda, Veda Tattva philosophy. Okay, there's still some time to go, so maybe we can try and finish the next pastime also. They were all quite short, so let's see if we can. Lanisha, would you like to continue reading? So it's nice to hear you read.
The Lord teaches his students. Although some of his followers were older, Lord Chaitanya himself was very young when he began teaching. He was a child prodigy. By the age of 11, Lord Chaitanya was the equivalent of a PhD and became the professor of his own school. At this young age, he was already one of the greatest teachers in India.
Okay, one more?
By the time he was about 14, he was very famous and was known as Nimai Pandit. He had thousands of students. He would sit by the side of the Ganges, and all the students would be around him, and he would teach them the Sanskrit grammar, Sanskrit kavi, poetry, and all the different aspects of Sanskrit, Shastra, Nyaya, different methods of coming to proper logical conclusions and debating.
Right, so here, he's actually already a scholar, Pandit. Nimai Pandit. Huh? And how old is he at this time?
14.
14 years old, yeah. So he's actually a scholar in Sanskrit at the age of 14. It's astonishing, isn't it? Huh? And not only that, he was the best. He was like the best scholar in Navadvip, which is the city of scholars, right? And so, even though he was 14, as mentioned, he had students that were older than him. That's interesting, isn't it? Right. So, has anyone heard of this term before, like child prodigy? Yeah? No? Yeah? What does it mean?
You're a genius when you're a child. So you excel and you're a genius basically.
Yeah.
But
so he's like a child genius, Sometimes they have that, and like these on television. I don't have a television, but they will show on television this child, he's got his master's or he's got his PhD, and they're very young. It's a very rare thing, and they come on television and they say all this clever stuff, right? So he was like that. He was very famous actually. His school, or his tola, was very famous. And then what did he teach? Is some of the subjects are mentioned here.
Sanskrit.
Yes. Sanskrit. Yeah, he would teach Sanskrit grammar, and also poetry as well. So he would teach poetry, grammar. Sorry, I just realized that not everyone's got the book. So then also he would teach shastras. So he would teach the scriptures. Yeah. Then he would teach Nyaya. Yeah. Nyaya so he wasn't actually teaching as a devotional career. He was actually a logician. Nyaya means logic.
Justice.
Huh?
Now I'm just thinking of now the meaning of now in Bengali. Is it justice?
Yeah, it's about it's like politics almost. Yeah, it's almost like politics, Nyaya. So another famous Nyayist, if that's a word, I don't know, would be Chanakya Pandit. Huh? Chanakya Pandit is a very famous personality, right?
Yeah.
Has everyone heard of Chanakya Pandit? Prabhupada references Chanakya Pandit very often.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was also expert in like this, in debating and logic and reasoning and rational, these kind of subjects. Yeah. So they'd be very good at making a point and making it stick and finding different arguments to get to that conclusion. So Nimai Pandit was really expert at that. Okay, so can continue.
He was very strict and made sure that all his students followed their daily sadhana, chanting their Gayatri and putting on tilak. Gayatri Mantra is especially important in our spiritual development. It helps us to control the mind and helps us to be able to meditate on the Lord. It is recommended that we have the Gayatri Mantra. Prabhupada said that it is not absolutely essential. We could go back to Godhead just by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But the Gayatri Mantra is very helpful for our spiritual progress. The Gayatri Mantra is also non-different from Krishna. The Kama Gayatri is non-different from the flute sound of Krishna. The Pancharatrika mantras help us in our spiritual progress, and most of the associates of Lord Chaitanya chanted the Gayatri Mantra.
So a lot of points here, which we can discuss, but I'll keep it fairly straightforward, as most of us are not initiated in this meeting. So so the essential point here is that we don't essentially need the Gayatri Mantra to go back to the spiritual world, because we have got the very powerful Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Yeah. So this is a great blessing that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us, the Maha Mantra, because the Maha Mantra is anyone can chant the Maha Mantra. There's no rules and regulations, no hard and fast rules to get spiritual perfection.
So the Gayatri Mantra, Prabhu, it's not right for everyone to say the Gayatri Mantra, isn't it? I mean, unless you're initiated, you shouldn't be saying it. And is it like the sound Om? Not all are allowed to say that because it's such an auspicious sound. So only the initiated can say that.
Yeah, so there are mantras that begin with Om that are generally not chanted, so by non-Brahmanas. So someone who's twice initiated, or Dvija, twice born, they can chant those mantras, as well as the Gayatri Mantra. And there are also different kinds of Gayatri Mantras. So generally thinks there's one very, very famous Gayatri Mantra, which we all have heard before. But that's not essentially the only Gayatri Mantra. Here in our line, there is what's called the Kama Gayatri. And really only one should look into this type of thing if one is approaching second initiation or Brahmanical initiation. But that Kama Gayatri is coming down from Lord Brahma. Krishna gave that Gayatri Mantra to Lord Brahma. Yeah? And it's said in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Dene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaya, in the first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that Lord Brahma, he's the first person who heard this Gayatri, and that mantra comes all the way down our disciplic succession to Srila Prabhupada and to Srila Prabhupada's disciples, and to eventually to us if we go in that direction. So our spiritual practice is actually, there are two paths. Yeah, we follow what's called the Bhagavat Dharma, which is completely transcendental, completely spiritual, which is chanting Hare Krishna and hearing Hari Katha. Yeah, so hearing and chanting. So that's one way to get back to Godhead, just following Bhagavat Dharma, because it's purifying and also reestablishes our relationship with Krishna. And the other line is called Pancharatrik. Yeah, so that's actually following rules and regulations for purification, so one doesn't become contaminated in this material world. So it's also helpful, but it's not essential. And so all the Brahmanical mantras, they come in that Pancharatrik mark. They come from that Pancharatric line. So there's two ways in our ISKCON society. So I didn't want to elaborate on it too much, but I guess I did, as I usually do. Does anyone have any questions, or we could move on, because it's going to be discussed more in the next few paragraphs, unless anyone has any burning questions. No? Okay. So if Lanisha would like to continue.
In Brahminical culture, one first gets Upanayana. Upanayana is the first Gayatri that we get in our Gayatri Mantras. Generally, it is given to the children studying the Vedas, and later on they get the other Pancharatrika mantras when they are more mature in their spiritual life. Lord Chaitanya insisted that everybody should wear tilak when they come for class. If somebody showed up without wearing tilak, he had them stand up in front of all the other students, which is very humiliating. He would say, Why don't you have tilak? Without tilak, your forehead is like a crematorium. It means you must not have taken your morning bath, chanted your Gayatri Mantra. If you had done all these things, then you would have your tilak. It is part of the morning duties. Then the Lord sent them back home.
So who'd like to go to Lord Chaitanya's school? Smita Mataji would, yay! Enrolled. Panchali had to think about it, but yes, she would like to go to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's school.
I was just thinking, because women are not allowed in the school, are they?
Traditionally not, but we're all in ISKCON.
I'd love to, yeah.
We're all in ISKCON, which is the house Srila Prabhupada built for all of us. Srila
Panchali
Prabhupada
will
ji.
shave our heads.
Pardon?
So we'll just shave our heads so no one will know the
Nobody would
difference.
know.
We can do that, yeah. Go in a disguise, yeah.
Yeah, and go there in disguise.
By hook or by crook.
Yeah.
Yeah, but make sure you wear tilak. Okay, so what's next?
So the student would go to take his bath, put on his tilak, say Gayatri, and then come back to school. Due to that kind of embarrassment, the students were careful to always come with tilak and having chanted their mantras. After a couple of people like that were sent back home, everybody would come with tilak. Lord Chaitanya insisted on these things.
So yes, of course, it is very important to wear tilak. What is the significance of wearing tilak? Does anybody know?
I can try,
Sure.
unless someone else wants to try, because
Please go ahead.
I could be wrong. So there are a few things, isn't it? I mean, one is it's the 2 feet of Vishnu.
Yeah.
And then they say that if you wear that, the tilak, Yamraj or any of his disciples would immediately note that you are the Lord's devotee, and they would just steer clear of you. They wouldn't trouble you or not come anywhere near you.
Yeah. So the 2 lines represent the 2 lotus feet of the Lord. And this leaf shape at the bottom, what is that?
That's 2 feet.
Yeah. So it's literally like you're bowing down to the Lord the whole day. Huh?
Yeah.
You're literally at the feet of the Lord the whole day with tilak. Yeah. And therefore, how can Yamaraj come near you when you're at the feet of the Lord? Yeah. Anyone else? And have you heard anything more about wearing tilak? I'm just aware that we're up to time now, but I was really keen to finish this this chapter. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 little paragraphs left. Would you be okay to continue, or would you like to continue next week?
Next week, Prabhuji.
Next week, getting late, yeah? Okay. So we can wrap it up. Just if there's any last thoughts on wearing the tilak, and then we'll wrap up.
I've got a question for next week, the tilak. Again, you can explain. I think I heard somewhere that you can actually put water instead of tilak, and that would also do if you're say going to a meeting and then you're not allowed to wear it, etc. So, but I'm going to find that out. Maybe I'll be able to give you the answer. I'll find that out. That's my homework. Yeah.
You can wear water, yeah, water tilak.
Yeah.
You can use like sacred water. You can get
that's
Ganges water, Radhakan water, whatever.
Yeah.
Tilak. Or you can invoke. You can use water which is from Achuman, or you can invoke water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else want to share any last points on tilak? I wonder if Nimesh, do you have any points you can share on tilak? Wearing tilak?
No, not really. No.
No. I've heard that it marks the body as a temple, right? Has everyone heard that before? Or am I just making that up?
No,
Is that right, Lanisha?
wear it at different parts of the body, can't you? On your arm and other parts of the body as well, because yeah, the body's a temple and it's different parts. They signify, or they different. Don't know. They have special. What's the right word? I can't. I'm lost for words, Prabhuji.
So this is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is saying that without tilak, the body is like the crematorium. Crematorium means where they're dead bodies. So the body is made of all dead materials, isn't it? Of course, we know that. Except for the soul, the spirit soul, which is conscious, the rest of the body, that one particle in the body is alive. The rest of the body is all dead, practically speaking. So it's not a wrong statement that he would make, actually. Huh? And then we go and worship this body all day long, look in the mirror, decorate it very nicely, ornamented, dress nicely. So basically we're worshipping this dead body. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has a very strong point in this joking mood. That wearing tilak, it actually sanctifies the body and transforms this crematorium into a temple, a holy temple of Vishnu. Because by applying the tilak and chanting the mantras, Om Keshavaya Namo, Om Narayana Namo, Madhavaya Govindaya Namo, all these mantras which we apply on the body, we're asking the Lord to reside on these different parts of the body. So the Lord is protecting us from all places in the body, and also purifying the body, making the body a temple. So many things we could say, I'm sure. I'm sure you could also say many, many things. But as we're going to finish a little bit over time today, we could stop here. Does anyone want to share any final thoughts before we close, or questions? No? All right then. So we can continue this next week, the discussion on the Brahminical culture which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was teaching here. So thanks everyone for joining again.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna,
Thank you.
Gauranga.
Hare Krishna.
Gauranga.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Krishna, Gauranga.
Thank you. Haribol. Bye,
Haribol.
everyone.